Hi, this is Chuck Martin. I'm here at the AI Summit London. I'm very happy to say I've got with me here Margi Sheth, Director of Data Policy AI at AstraZeneca. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great
So
to be
you're
here.
involved in AI like all the time. Where does AI fit in healthcare and drug discovery these days?
So AI can be used in many different places in drug discovery and in healthcare. So it can help design clinical trials that are faster, smarter, and more likely to be successful, and help match the right patient to the right trial or arm of a clinical trial, so that even when we're doing an experimental trial before a drug is approved by a regulator, we can try and increase the chances of success to help that patient. So it saves money, it saves time in drug development, and it can hopefully be a lot more beneficial to the patients.
Are there other healthcare applications besides drug discovery for AI?
Yeah, so it can help in patient monitoring, remote monitoring, that sort of thing. There's even predictive types of tools that can be used, and diagnostic tools. So for example, scanning images, like radiology images of a tumor or your lung or something like that, it can help radiologists find those tumors or regions that might become tumors much faster. It saves the radiologist hours, and it helps reduce the cost and the time invested.
So is that becoming standard now?
It's not necessarily standard yet, but there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of development, and it's becoming more and more being embedded in people's exploratory, I'd say exploratory ways of making things faster. So it's very much being looked at as a hot button issue and very interesting now. Hopefully it can be embedded into practice once we start trusting the quality, safety of the AI tools and build frameworks of how a radiologist, for example, can work with the AI tool to help the patient.
Is it like other industries where there's a small group that's reluctant to use any of this new stuff, and then there's the mass group that says it's so obvious we should do this? Is healthcare like that or not?
There always is. The biggest element is maintaining trust. So does the doctor, the healthcare system trust the tools that are available to them? Does the patient trust the tools that might be in their hands, or the doctor that uses it? So in drug development, things might be a little bit farther away from the patient or the doctor, but it's also the scientist. Do they trust the tool, especially if they didn't build it themselves? So there's always a bit of hesitancy, which I think is healthy, because you need to make sure you trust the tool, but then you also need to foster that culture of trust and maintain that trust in the doctors and the healthcare system, whether or not AI is used.
So you're a champion of AI ethics. Tell
Yes.
me about that.
Yeah, so I'm helping to drive responsible AI through applying ethical principles in AI, in data science and AI at my company. What we do is we try and think about what values we want to protect in our company in terms of the ways we work and our company culture, and then how does that translate to when a human and machine are working together, either to validate what a human does or to speed up what a human does. How do we make sure we can trust it, and how do we make sure we can use the AI ethically so that we, for example, are in line with our environmental sustainability goals, if we avoid things like harmful biases, and we can further our goal of global access to healthcare.
Do companies in general in healthcare see the potential risk in ethics and bias in AI?
I think they do. I think there's a lot of discussions around it, whether or not companies formally have a group or a function to mitigate those risks. I think it's something that very much is built in, because pharmaceuticals and biomedicals have always been data driven, and a lot of that introducing of that bias can start with data. So if you understand your data set, if you have a robust data set and know the strengths and weaknesses of it, then you can either enhance it, supplement it, or do a variety of other methods to try and reduce those harmful biases, or at least know what the risk is so you can manage it outside.
Do you see eventually in healthcare there being standards for ethics? That there's some standards body comes along and says, these are the things, the rules that all healthcare organizations should follow?
Well, so healthcare is under a lot of regulations already.
I
So
know.
we're quite used to regulations, and now this is a technology being regulated on top of that. And additionally, things like bioethics is quite a robust, mature field that everyone is familiar with. And groups like the OECD or the Nuffield Council on Bioethics, they always put out principles, best practices, that sort of thing. So I think the convergence of all of that might be, I think, what you're talking about, some standard principles. But there's also groups like pharmaceutical alliances and that sort of thing, industry working groups that also put out best practices. So whether or not it's a formal ethics mandate or not, I think it's going to be there, and it's kind of built into the culture already because we're used to bioethics, patient ethics, that sort of thing.
Does it sort of become obvious what to do for ethics in healthcare?
Not necessarily, but it's easier to try and teach people in the healthcare because the stakes are high. You know, everyone wants the patient to have the most benefit, so no one really wants to go to go astray in that regard. And we're again having a strong foundation of different types of ethics. This is digital ethics that comes in, what's different and why, and so just understanding, articulating that difference, and then seeing, well, what can you do and what resources are available to you. I think people are usually quite receptive.
So generative AI, which is everything these days because of ChatGPT, and I'm sure you talk about this all the time, where does that fit in healthcare, if yet?
So there's so many different use cases that you can use generative AI. So many people like to use it to create text for themselves or summarize text or understand something. It can also be used to generate code, right? So if you're trying to develop code for some sort of machine learning, you know, maybe you could use generative AI there. You can also do literature searches, that sort of thing. So all kinds of basic science and research can be supplemented with it. That being said, there's caveats. No generative AI is perfect. It's not fully trustworthy yet. It's getting there. It might be there in a few years, but it's new, it's exciting. Try and explore it, but know its limits, and try and be careful when you're using it to make a very important decision.
So do you spend your business life saying, we can do that, we can't do that with AI?
To some degree, people? Yeah. Well, teaching people to ask the right questions. Ask, do I trust this? Why do I trust it? Why don't I? What can I do to make this more trustworthy? Because it's all about pushing that trust. You know, so if you have a set of questions to ask, you know, where could there be bias in this algorithm? How can I correct for it? What's the threshold in which I'd say, all right, this time to retrain this algorithm? If you have those questions in mind, I don't say you have a score you need to meet to go. But if you can truly answer those questions for yourself, you'll get a better quality AI product, and ethics and trust are going to be built in with that quality by design.
In pharmaceutical companies in general, because they're so regulated and they have to be so responsible for all kinds of various reasons, are they typically developing all this stuff internally just so they know what's in the black box, as opposed to getting it from a black box from somewhere else in AI?
Well, not necessarily. A lot of things are built internally, especially because it's a small scale decision that you need to make for a specific question, and maybe the AI solution is not going into production, or it's only going to be into production once or twice, not regularly used. A lot is being developed internally. That being said, we very much partner with AI companies, with smaller scale health diagnostics and health AI companies to combine the power of their technologies with our data and try and generate new insights in disease.
So a year from now, we're sitting here talking about AI and healthcare. What will we be talking about? Now, a year ago, I asked people this. Yeah. Nobody said generative AI, just so you know. So nobody's really right in a year.
So the trend is, and I think the predictions are that large-scale models like GPT-4 and generative AI, that's kind of a non-specific, that era is going to end quickly, and it's going to be a little bit more specialized. Generative or broad general AI for specific purposes in specific fields like text or like finance or maybe healthcare. So I think it's going to be more specializations and understanding, you know, quickly developing tools that can be applied immediately. What sort of regulations and what sort of cutoffs do people need in order to make their patients or their clients or the community trust it?
Well, I look forward to that conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.